Hello guys. Um, Today I have somebody with me, Preston, and we're gonna be talking about the clones and like gene editing technology, like humans, embryos, and how it might over time, if this continues, change the perspective of religion and just the overall just how humans view the world, almost like a mind shift. I'm going to start off by asking Preston, how do you feel about human cloning and just, embryos, the Lulu and Nana, who are HIV resistant due to the doctor, gene editing them as embryos from HIV parents who were HIV positive? Like, how do you feel about all this? Clones as in animals.
Well, my stance on clones is pretty much that I'd say go for it, If you want to grow a clone just to harvest their organs, I mean...
So we're going into harvesting organs. So see, that's another positive. You can grow organs.
Yeah, but then there's the issue of it's still a human,
There's still probably some issues.
So there's the mind that would be intact as well, and you don't want it to be torture. But if you could find a way to clone just the torso of a human body, for example, I'd say go for it.
Yeah.
That way you don't have to rely on donors.
Yeah, it would take a lot of the waiting lists down.
And as far as the two twins that were HIV resistant, that's super cool too.
How do you feel about aliens?
It was gene editing, right?
It was gene editing.
Like CRISPR.
Yep, the CRISPR, which is what I think they also used during the shot time.
I feel like it's inevitable that we're moving towards the future where everyone's going to be, designer babies, so to speak.
Got to be careful though and have different groups, so there's not any like repetitive things, and then like one sickness can knock everyone down.
Well, see, that's the problem. What do you have in nature when you grow two plants? When one plant fertilizes the next, its seeds have what? Genetic variation, which is something they automatically do. And when they stop doing that, but just like the banana plants, they're gone. The gene pool's like once they're wiped out, they're gone.
So you always need some type of genetic variation.
So down the line, would it not stand to reason that there would be some type of lack of genetic variation because you're making them pinpoint?
Mm-hmm.
Or would that not be a problem because you can just replace precise genetic, you can tweak it when you need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. You can tweak it and you could change it. But if you do like too much or too little or do like an error, then it could also have negative effects. And we're still in the process, I would assume, of figuring it all out. If like a human is born with some type of severe defect due to being edited, and what do you do in that case, And how do you feel about like aliens and clones and like getting microbes or DNA from another planet or like the space station that gets stuck on the outside and then cloning it with something that is from here on Earth?
I would say, cross mega hybrid. Let's see what happens.
A human or animal alien hybrid walking around somewhere.
I'm sure on the space station they're already doing, cloning procedures.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee they got something going on.
So, how do you think such things would change the religious perspective of many in the world?
Well, God is the creator of life. Nothing would really change because you're a female. You give birth to children. You are a creator of life, so to speak.
Yep. So everybody is technically a creator of life. I agree with that too. If you have children or anything, even if you grow like a plant from a seed, you're creating life in that moment. You're giving it the opportunity or an environment
But
to
that doesn't
thrive.
make you God.
I guess it depends on what perspective you're looking at it
So
for.
creating life in a laboratory wouldn't make you God either. Therefore, nothing would change about religion. It's
So
still going to be faith based.
is the creator and the created equal essentially? Then is what I would then come to the conclusion. You know, I
I
always
don't think I'd have my own opinion about that.
well, that comes into play in that moment, because if you have people over here in labs creating whole environments, creating embryos and babies and human clones and alien clones, then they would technically be creating something brand new, and that within itself would be life. And the definition of religion, according to Google, is the belief in worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods, a particular system of faith and worship, a pursuit or interest to which someone ascribes supreme importance. So it can have various different.
They said it was faith based.
Yeah, it's
I feel like
faith,
religion. That's exactly the heart
hope.
of religion. It's faith based. So, if your whole perception of the world and afterlife is based in this unrelenting faith, just because somebody made some clones in a lab probably isn't going to deter you from still holding that perspective.
Yeah, but then I wonder, like, okay, you have faith, for example. What if people live forever due to this gene editing technology, or can cure all kinds of sicknesses, for example?
If you got hit by a meteorite, you'd still be dead.
Yeah, but then you could make a clone because you would have the DNA stored somewhere.
But
the question is, would it still be you and your consciousness?
I don't think it would still be you. It'd be a brand new consciousness.
I think it'd be like a mixture. I think there's parts of you. I guess you don't know unless you try.
I mean, what are you other than the memories that you hold?
But that's exactly it. Your DNA code is the memories that you hold. Any type of memory gets imprinted into your DNA, and that is you, and that's what passes down in the ancestry down the line, right? You're part of this, and you have some behaviors of this ancestor, and some, maybe even thoughts that they had. Yeah. And it's really weird, and it really makes you really question it, because it's gonna change one day, and I believe in the future, if this continues, it's gonna shift. They're gonna get away from religion slowly and worship something new. They're worshiping something more edited, something new. And technically, throughout human history, that's happened so often, because there once was a lot of gods, and then there was only one god, and then they made the 5 main religions that they have now, and it always slightly changes based on the times, and it's almost like we're entering a different time where we also have to, as humanity as a whole, slightly shift the way we think about religion and life and creation, because we ourselves are not only creating it by making babies or growing plants or something like that, but we can now also literally start out as a little dot and egg, put it together, tweak it, and make it designer,
Would we enter a world where everyone has a neutral stance on religion?
Yeah, and eventually, as time goes on, it would be neutralized, right? Because
Maybe.
you would have hope in something new. There's always hope, because there's always going to be people who are going to be against it, I assume. You know, there's going to be a small group of people,
Guaranteed.
yeah, who are probably going to always remain Christians or have this other hope, because everything has something about it, right?
Yup.
That's somewhat the truth. And to kind of get into how something like this would even be possible is that everything inside of the universe clearly follows certain chemical rules, and also the laws of physics and geometric rules, aka mathematics. I've read a lot about, I haven't really read a lot, but I've kind of like, you know, kind of skimmed through some of these books, and there's something really interesting that I would like to share with everybody that kind of would explain the flower of life, or how something like this could even occur. So it shows right here a sperm swarm around an egg, and these are like actual little pictures, and then it turns into, it gives you, I'm going to give you an explanation. So here's a bunch of like sperm cells surrounding an egg under a microscope, and they are clearly fertilizing it. And the 13th sperm essentially penetrates into the 12th sperm, allowing the 13th to penetrate the ovum, so go into the egg, and then that is what causes it to suddenly get fertilized. So we go from here to here. We have these little sperms making little room. It allows the 13th to enter, and or whichever one, and then it kind of shows them being unionized. Almost everything in the universe seems to be electromagnetic chemical forces that hold everything together, you know, like by creating gravity and pressure and temperature and all this type of stuff. And that clearly holds the planets and stuff in place, including, you know, like the moon affecting the tides and the moods of people and stuff. And I've noticed, like, on a half moon, if someone's like about to die, they either die or they don't die, and it's usually when there's a half moon. That's just in my personal life. But we keep looking at these little pictures, and it shows how they go. But then this particular one is where it starts getting really interesting, and it kind of shows how, you know, like the sperm and the egg, how does it begin dividing? In other words, like, how does it start, you know, going from one egg and divide? Like, how does it decide that? And it's due to the, like, poles. It's due to the, like, the positions of the planets and the moon and the sun, and like your location on Earth in that moment. Because, you know, it's just like getting your weight and going on a scale in different areas, you know, on Earth or on the moon. You know, on the moon you'd be lighter. Here on Earth you'd be like heavier, but you could also slightly vary by a couple pounds or kilos, depending on what location you are on Earth. This right here, clearly, if you were to be like pregnant, and if you have like an egg or a sperm, you know, and it fuses, like in this picture, you know, which direction does it start dividing? And it has to do with like your location and the electromagnetic, like, chemical energy around you, just like the moon affecting like the tides of the ocean. I feel like it also can affect, you know, like the moods and personality of like when you were born. Then you'll have like a certain personality based on certain such factors of like how this happened. And it shows right here that the first four cells form a tetrahedron, and this is like a tetrahedron, and these right here is kind of how it looks like. It's like a little triangle. and that's when it divides, you know, like clearly again. Here is how it would look in a mouse egg when it divides that many times into a tetrahedron. The egg of life is the first 8 cells. So that is like what makes someone you. Like that is life. And depending, I guess, on your location and the electromagnetic chemical energy at the time of these cells forming, it can have various geometric ways that it can put itself together. And here it gives you like an example. Like this looks more like a little flower, this one's more like this one's more like this. It's kind of interesting. It follows like the metronon's cube or the circle and the square. It kind of follows that is the simplified version of it and how it would be complicated. And ultimately, the Masonic symbol, and as you see, this is the most important symbol, is that it would ultimately, the circle and the square with the eight cells of life within the little sperm and egg that have, you know, like formed and divided the first 8 cells, how they, you know, structure themselves geometrically, then would follow this, and that is, you know, the star tetrahedral field that surrounds each of us by Leonardo da Vinci. It's really interesting. It features this a lot. It has all kinds of little pictures. It has a lot about the pyramids and how it would tilt. See, it kind of showed you how the earth has like a slight, you know, like tilt. But it's interesting how everything follows, you know, like a very particular sequence. And it's all kind of like a universal Fibonacci almost type of like sequence that everything follows. It can add on to it, like it can make it more complicated, but it always is like the simple circle and square and triangle. But we can color it and add some flowers around it and all that kinds of stuff. So I wanted to point something out about this. Number 1, you see the circle and the square, and that is like the simple form of the human, one could say. It kind of does look like that. And you see kind of like the human, you know, see the circle, the square. So it follows the Masonic symbol, which is also related to Christianity. A lot of Christians seem to follow this, but they also seem to be a lot more handy science, logic. And number 2, you see the 6-pointed star, the Jewish symbol that you see. And I find it interesting how it kind of relates to religion in that point, and it gets to the, you know, like galaxies, and we have our atom, right? And it kind of shows how the atom flows. Kind of follows a similar type of shape. Has little eight dots in the middle, and or the life, the energy. It starts out as 1. It fuses, and then, you know, it also has the little X, which is kind of like, you know, it kind of follows the simplified shape of this. Here is the circle and the square and the metronon's cube, and then below is the Mason's line drawn over the egg of life, so you can kind of see that. And then once again that symbol. Even the human follows this sequence, or the phi ratio. The phi ratio in the butterflies and wings, it's almost like everything follows a certain pattern. And if you look around, if you really look at everything, everything has shapes. If you were to simplify everything, a house is a square, has a triangle on top. The rocks kind of look like circles or little eggs. Everything has like a little shape that it can be divided into. Even if it's like a really odd shape, you could technically break it down and turn it into simplified shapes that then can be calculated and stuff. What's really interesting then is here's a little table of how the different ions can look. And here's the various atom patterns in crystals. You can kind of see them right here. Then it starts going into gems. And you know how gems have a certain cut. Everything just seems to follow a very particular pattern. It can be scientifically, mathematically, and chemically shown. Maybe not always. Like ghosts and stuff like that. I believe it's more like there's a world we can't see because, there's like the spectrum of, like colors and sounds that we as humans can perceive or hear or see, taste, touch, feel. And then, there's various animals who also have certain colors that they may see or feel or smell stronger than we or less than we as humans can. They might see the sky as red or green, and we as humans see it as blue. It just all depends on how your rods and cones form themselves and your scent glands and all that stuff. And how much of the world we as humans then just don't perceive simply because we can only perceive so much with our current form. And if we as humans were to, begin this gene editing and splicing and mixing it with other DNA, potentially from other planets or asteroids or meteorites, from aliens, or if we even advance our own DNA and kind of, tweak it slightly, we could turn ourselves superhuman. We could maybe have green skin one day and photosynthesize. We can do all kinds of stuff. And that would essentially mean that we as humans are also gods in a sense. And we have created something new in life, just kind of like how religion teaches us. Is that, that there's one creator or multiple creators depending on your religion, and that, that's how life is formed and shaped. And who states that there's not something necessarily above us that at one point was created by something else or something bigger, or even us at one point a long time ago or in the future, that is much greater than us, even like technology, robots, something that is not necessarily biological but functions. There's many, different options and variations available, and we can create that just like everything else was created in the universe. And that there is probably also something bigger than us and bigger than anything that we here on Earth know, maybe in outer space, that could be also considered a god. But I feel like there's various different levels of life and creation and consciousness, and that we as humans are in one level, and we have the ability to do so much, but each god or level has its limits for that time period until for some reason it unlocks the next step. I do not mean to offend anybody if you are a religious believer. I realize that it gives you hope, but science and such technology might also give you hope in a different way. And I believe that anybody who has received such a shot technically did believe in something greater in that moment, and they did believe in science in that moment. Even if they were religious and believed in the other, they also trusted the science and the other human creators in that moment who chose to do this. And that is something very important to note. And that I know that everybody follows some type of math or science, that they've learned it in school. And that religion is essentially, it mentions many of these things, but it kind of like tweaks it, it seems like. And that we can create our own new religion out of this that creates a whole new path or way of life for Earth and humans as a whole that we can do together to get even more advancements and see how far we can create, because we already live on this earth and we're already creating every day. Everyone is, and that's amazing.